Hello everyone, I am Zelal Yilmaz. I am an architect and I'm glad to be here with you today. I'm looking forward to talking with you about my study Emergency Architecture on Onagawa, Istanbul. Let's start the presentation. Motivation of my study is that analyzes the differences and the common problems of temporary settlements, and also the study will contribute to understanding the mismatch between them and to find opportunities for the improvement for the next projects and the further studies to define new temporary settlement approaches with an overview of both architectural and urban planning strategies from a large perspective. And the problem was that we know that the temporary concept in temporary settlements longer than we expect, and with the time they are becoming a permanent way of for dwellers over the time. And in these settlements, accommodation may take longer than the estimate. And with this way, environmental and architectural decisions are very important for a holistic design and planning approach. So I start with my study with this problem. Here we can see that displaces persons from a natural disaster in 2019. We can see that these two countries, Turkey and Japan, their number is really high, and this also makes the study important because the displaced person from a natural disaster. And case studies, one and Onagawa are my case studies. One of the most important city center of the Eastern Anatolia region in Turkey, and the city was affected from a mass earthquake in 2011. Here we can see that the temporary settlements hall, and these are the container units. In Onagawa also it's same. Onagawa is a small fishing town in Japan. And the town was affected from, again, earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear accident. Here, also in this figure, these are container units for dwellers. Methods and phases. I start with the literature review, especially about temporary accommodation, and then I use interview method for temporary areas in one. And also, I created analysis maps and plans for the areas and the units. And also, I obtained the data and evaluated by comparison method in the evaluation table. Here, I start with the literature review, and then I focus on my key points. These key points are which important points for me creating a temporary settlement. And here I add also my analysis on for urban view, and I compare, and at that we can see that my comments about these two temporary settlements. Here we can see that previous studies, and it started with 2008 Savaşır, and Savaşır studied on post-disaster housing design. And then Wackerman, he studied on transitional accommodation after disasters. And also Henry Abronor, McConnell, and Wanable, they're studied on post-disaster housing. And with this way, I saw that for temporary settlements, there is not too much studies. So I prefer to focus on temporary settlements with a big overview. Here I created that temporary settlements. This table is like classification of temporary settlements. They are in 5 groups. These are disaster areas, refugee camps, military camps, settled camps, and nomadic groups. But my study is that in disaster areas, temporary settlements planned for collective settlements after major disaster. And their type usually, and it can be tent containers or sometimes local structure. And their durations in literature between 1 month and 2 years. In this slide, we can see that my key points table I created in architectural features and urban relations to compare these two temporary settlements. We can see that this key points table at the end of the study again. And in this part, these are my analysis on these container settlements. This is for Onagawa. And here I focus on accessibility to facilities, mostly hospital and educational, and also green areas and the site selection before the earthquake and the disaster. In this part, we can see that the site plan of the temporary area, and first one is the first floor plan, and second one is the big market for dwellers, and the third one is the atelier, and the fourth picture is that the interior view from the temporary unit. And here also the most important points are that interior needs for dwellers and durability of the structure, and also sustainability of the material, and also if there's a variety of design for dwellers or not. And this analysis for another temporary settlements for one. Here also in the same logic, I try to understand accessibility to facilities, again, especially hospital and educational way, and also where is the green areas and if there's a site selection before disaster or not. And here is the architectural features part. This is the site plan of the temporary settlement. First is the floor plan, second is the facade, and floor plan and facade for all these settlements for all units are the same. And also third, fourth, and fifth pictures are the exterior kitchen and the settlement view of these temporary settlements. Here also is the same. I try to understand interior basic needs and the durability of the structure, and if there's a sustainability for material or not. And again, if there's a different planning for dwellers or the units plans are same or not. And at the end, we can see that my evaluation table, the key points are determined in architectural features and urban relations, and whether there is a problem or not, according to the conditions of the two settlements, and according to my analysis. And I can give a basic one or two key points for explanation. We can see that accessible to health facilities for both container settlements, we can see that they can easily access the health facilities. And for suitable design for climatic conditions, for Onagawa container settlement, we can say that there is no problem in this key point. But for one container settlement, we can see that there is a problem because all units are the same, and there is no special design for this area, and especially one, it's really hot in summer and it's really cold in winter, and with this way it is not suitable design for the climatic conditions. With this understanding style, I try to fill out my key points table, and at the end we can see that my comments and suggestions for creating these temporary settlements. And as a conclusion, we can see that temporary settlements should be designed with a general approach without being caught in the temporal setting. In this approach, the environmental factors, important public building, access to green areas, and social activity areas also should be calculated. And we know that also any disaster can be exposed again. And this is also important that the material used against this robust, and the materials also should be resistant to these disasters. And the third one is that architectural plan must done separately for each person or for each family, and it's really a logical way to planning these structures. And fourth one is that it's really important to create not only a living space or place for victims, and also design a space to contribute of their daily life process. And this can be like, again, green areas, but in the settlements and accessible way, and social activity areas, and also maybe working areas, and maybe much more educational areas for the dwellers. And the use of sustainable materials has a great importance these days, and it's also contribute to recycling and energy saving. I think we should also consider about these key points while we are creating these areas. And at the end, I think the most important one, determining temporary settlements area before, I think, disaster or emergency situation. And we know that any possible minor disaster can be happen, and planning of these areas also contribute to the further process and the following process. And this was my study. Thank you for your listening. If you have any question, I will be glad to answer them.